Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute series, your quick guide to business impact. My name is Tori Thomas, Community and Government Affairs over at the Boise Chamber, and your host for today's event. The Boise Metro Chamber is Idaho's only five-star accredited chamber, representing nearly 2,000 members. Our events and educational content are only possible thanks to our members' investment into their community. Before I introduce our speaker today, I'd love to give a quick shout out and big thank you to our sponsor, Holly Troxel, for their generous support. Please enjoy this brief message from our sponsor.
I'm Tom Mortel, co-managing partner of Holly Troxel. Our firm is proud to be the sponsor of the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute. In the 6 communities we serve throughout Idaho and Eastern Washington, we have the pleasure of providing legal services to great companies, large and small. Similar to the Chamber, we represent companies from Main Street businesses to some of the largest corporations in our area. We appreciate the opportunity to advocate on their behalf as a part of the Chamber's advocacy program and to further the Chamber's efforts to advocate on behalf of its members. Welcome to the Metro Minute. Please enjoy today's presentation.
Well, joining us today is Erin Anderson, Executive Director of the Idaho Botanical Garden and a board member for Yes for Boise. Erin Anderson is the Executive Director of the Idaho Botanical Garden. With over 20 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, Erin excels in program management, fundraising, leadership development, and strategic visioning. In addition to her role at IBG, Erin is dedicated to volunteerism and philanthropy in the Boise community. She serves as a board member at the Boise Metro Chamber of Commerce and on the Yes for Open Space and Clean Water. She holds a bachelor's in political science from Boise State University and a master's in organizational leadership from Gonzaga University. In her free time, Erin enjoys hiking the Boise foothills with her partner Jimmy and their dogs Ned and Willa. So I think she's joining us in a second. Awesome. Hi, Erin. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to include on your bio that you were obviously a huge part of my first days of the Boise Chamber with you chairing our nonprofit council. And I am so grateful for you. And I always think of our mini chats and all the meetings that you led. So another aspect of your philanthropy.
Well, I love the Chamber and I love everything that the Chamber helps us accomplish here in the Treasure Valley. So I like to be involved as possible.
That's awesome. Well, we appreciate it a lot over here. Well, thanks so much for being here again. We want to chat a little bit about the Open Space and Clean Water Levy today. And I am excited to chat with you, learn a little bit more, and share with our members a little bit more about this levy, especially with Election Day being next week. So we'll jump into some questions. So first, I'd like to know a little bit more about the Open Space and Clean Water Levy and then kind of what the primary goal is. We had a couple of levies in 2001 and 2015. So kind of how does that build off of those?
Yeah, so essentially what the levy will do when passed this year is it will help create an additional pool of funds to continue to implement some really amazing projects here in our community. As you mentioned, the first levy passed in 2001, another in 2015. The funds in that levy account are getting very low, and we have so much more work to do here in our community, in Boise and in the Treasure Valley, and this provides an opportunity to make that investment.
That's awesome. That's very exciting to hear that it's coming back. And hopefully on Tuesday, it will pass and it will become something that those funds can go towards these opportunities. So, well, what type of projects will these fund? I know there's some specific areas like river restoration, wildfire mitigation, foothills preservation, anything specific or stuff that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, so the levy funds really can fund a plethora of different areas for conservation efforts. One of the really significant areas that people are excited and interested about is just clean water and restoration efforts. Of course, Boise and Idaho being such a conservation-based state, we love that access to open space, to foothills trails, also wildlife and wildfire mitigation efforts, how we can keep our Boise foothills and the area surrounding Boise safe from fire, and how we can keep that wildlife really happy. But then there's other opportunities also that the levy can help fund, like pathway development, building on the City of Boise's master plan, Pathways Master Plan. Projects that the levy has funded in the past are things like the let's see, we have the Settlers Pathway Project, Table Rock restoration efforts, Hillside to Hollow Trail System. We have parks and communities. As we all probably know, the goal of Boise Parks and Recreation and of the City of Boise is to have a park within a 10-minute walk of every resident in Boise, and this levy helps to make that happen.
So cool. That's one of my favorite initiatives. I think that's such a cool opportunity and just creates more of a community based city, which I love.
Well, it's such an important part too for the Boise community, because as I mentioned, we are such a conservation oriented state and city, and having that access to open space is not something that everybody in other cities across the country have. And that's one of the things I think that makes Boise so special. It's being able to have that easy access so that everybody in our community can get out, they can connect with nature, connect with open space, have clean water, the things that really make Boise, Boise.
Yeah, you are so right. I think there's such a draw to Boise because of that access to quickly getting up the hills and going for a walk, or letting the dog jump in the ponds, or, just stuff like, it's just so cool to have that easy access and to enjoy it. And amazing to have folks and also our community care so much about it that they want stuff like this to contribute to that. Obviously, with levies, there is a stuff put onto the taxpayer. What will that be for property taxes? What will be the impact of this levy for folks in the area?
That's a great question. It's about $9 and I think 95 cents per $100,000 of your home value. So for the average person living in Boise, it's about $40 a year for 2 years. And that $40 a year for 2 years from the average Boise resident is going to increase the amount of funds available up to, I think it's about $11 million for the levy, that then will turn around and go back into our communities, into those open spaces, those parks, those clean water restoration efforts. So it's a relatively low commitment from each household to be able to invest into the levy, but with really, really significant impacts here.
That's awesome. That's cool. I think that's obviously something that you have to be aware of. It's obviously, again, when we talk about a community, you also have to be aware of the folks that contribute financially and within their taxes. And so I think that's definitely a perk to it. It's definitely a smaller amount, which is good for a lot of folks.
Yes.
Well, and then kind of coming from a chamber perspective, what role do you see businesses playing within supporting or benefiting from and in this levy?
Yeah. Well, let's start off by talking about the benefits and how businesses benefit from this levy. As we know, Boise is such an outdoor focused community. When we make those top lists, top 5, top 10 best places to live in the United States, all the time we're talking about access to open space. We're talking about mountain biking. We're talking about hiking in the foothills. We're talking about that initiative that we have where we are 10 minutes walking distance from any park in the city of Boise. So what that does for businesses is it helps attract great employees to the Treasure Valley and to Boise. It helps retain employees. It helps attract companies. And for those of us like myself who work within cultural arts or service industry, it helps bring in tourism as well. And so by building stronger community through access to open space, to conservation efforts, what it does is it helps our business community continue to grow and thrive. And that's really exciting. It's something that we talk a lot about at the Chamber, what makes Boise, Boise. We talk about it a lot through the Boise Valley Economic Partnership, just how is it that we can attract and retain individuals in the business community here to help us continue to grow and meet the growing needs of our community. Now, how you can help support, it's pretty easy. Number one, you can vote yes for the levy. No matter which district you live in, this is on our ballot. You may only be voting for the levy if you are not in a district that has a city council member running, but it's so incredibly important to get out there and vote. In addition, you can still donate. You can donate to help support the levy, to make sure that we have all the funds that we need to push this over the finish line. So those are two really easy areas for the business community to get involved, and you can help talk about it. If you feel comfortable talking about it at your business, please do so. If you need some of those talking points, if you would like anybody to send out information, we're happy to do that. We are in this finish line. We just have a few more days, less than a week for the election. So it's really important for us to be talking about this a lot and talking about it loudly.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do agree. I think that recruitment and retention is something that we're constantly talking about. I was just at a mining conference the last couple of days, and one of the biggest topics was having kind of how to keep employees, like what are benefits that we can keep. And there was a panel with some college kids, and excuse me, they were saying the flexibility is really what we want, and that trumps being a higher paying salaries for some people, probably not for everybody, but I think, and then the common conversation around that was flexibility so we can go enjoy being outside and being in, especially if they are put in Idaho for our, opportunities here. It's such a cool opportunity that they can, even within the city, obviously, if they're up in the mountains, they have that, but coming back into Boise and still having this opportunity to be by the river and to be up in the foothills. And I do agree, it's such a great way for businesses to promote employees being here. And so kind of touching on that, talking about the growth of Boise, but Idaho in general, how does this levy help balance those development pressures? And then kind of with the need to protect that open space and then maintain that quality of life that people care about so much here?
That's such a great question, Tori, because it is this, we walk a fine line. We know that we all need more housing. We know that we are having, a housing crisis here in the Treasure Valley. But also with that, we know that we need to preserve this open space. It's so incredibly important to people's health and well-being to connect with nature, to get outside. We learned that a lot during the pandemic. And I think that we had a little bit deeper connection to our open space here. If you were here in Boise during the pandemic and you went out onto one of the trails in the Boise foothills, you went on the Greenbelt, you could see how active and live that was. But in order to do that, we have to preserve some of these spaces. Otherwise, they could be taken over by development. And that is through parks. That is through ensuring that we have clean water. That is through pathways, ensuring that we have pathways to get connectivity to and from some of the places in our neighborhood, the places that we work in, that we, recreate in, that we want to go eat at, that we have restaurants that are walkable, all of those things. But in order to have that happen, we have to have funds in order to support these projects. And to be very honest, the need is so great that it's not something that can be completely taken care of, say, through Boise Parks and Rec, because there are limitations on what those budgets can do. And some of these parks that are up for development are years and years out, and the levy can help bring some of those to the table a lot sooner, can purchase property up in the Boise foothills, can work with those clean water restoration efforts. All of those things happen because of this levy, and without this levy, there tends to be more challenging times to be able to preserve some of these spaces.
Love that. Thank you for that answer. I do agree. I think, it's definitely a balance, and I think this creates that good opportunity for folks to see that we obviously want it to be a community where people can grow and thrive in, and also to go and enjoy.
Yes.
Well, then kind of going into the funds, there is still some unspent money from the 2015 levy. How is that being used? And then how does that kind of set us up for this new wave of funding?
So there's a very small amount of unspent funding left in that levy. There's about $400,000. So we know that in the times that we're in, that doesn't get us very far, but there is a small amount of money left over. So the goal is pass this levy, replenish that fund over the next several years, and continue making progress as it relates to open space and clean water here in the Boise community. The funds that are left within that are not completely spoken for, but there are some projects that need some additional funding. And I know that the city, who manages the entire process for where the funds do get spent, is looking at that right now, but the funds are so low that we really need this to pass so that we can continue to make some great progress here in our community.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know. I think it's great to know that the city, obviously, I think it's cool to know that it's not fully dedicated yet, but that they're ready. They're ready to take this money and to spend it on what is being asked for, or maybe what's being looked at. So, well, thank you for that information. You kind of shared on this a little bit with the business's role and how to support and kind of how to see the benefits of this. Can you chat a little bit more on how the community members can get involved, whether it's through advocacy, volunteering, or even providing input? We obviously just talked about what projects the funds are being used for. How can the community members get involved?
That's a great question, and we are really hitting the ground running right now. As I mentioned, the election is 6 days away. A lot of the efforts right now for volunteerism are going to be focused on getting out the vote. So working with Conservation Voters for Idaho, they're going to be filling several door knocking shifts. There'll be some phone banking, ensuring that people are getting out to the polls. That's a really important component of this levy, just making sure that we get the people out so that we can vote. The good news is, in all the door knocking efforts that have taken place from the beginning, when we first started launching this campaign until now, the residents in Boise overwhelmingly are supporting this levy. But what it's going to come down to is getting the people out to do the votes. The other thing that you can do, of course, aside from volunteering, is you can make a donation, because that donation helps support those who are getting out there, who are doing the door knocking, help support advertisements or flyers that are going out, really the marketing and the communication efforts that are behind the project, and the team that's really been boots on the ground ensuring that we get this levy over the finish line. So there's a lot of different ways to be able to get involved. If you've never door knocked before, it's not scary, especially for an issue very similar to this. And for this issue, people are really excited to hear more about the levy, how it will impact them, the direct benefits that they're going to be seeking. So when you're out there knocking on people's doors with Conservation Voters for Idaho or any of the other groups who are doing the door knocking, it's a really positive experience, and it gives you an opportunity to get to know other members of our community.
Yeah, I think that reminder that it's not scary is such a good one. I think it's so daunting to go up to someone's door, but I think with certain topics, it makes it a little bit easier, especially if people are passionate about this enough to go and talk to people. And I think you're right. It's such a good opportunity to hear from people. Maybe it's this topic that they really like, or maybe it's something else that you can start to learn a little bit more about everyone's community wants and needs, and learn a little bit more why people keep choosing Boise and surrounding areas to be their home. I know, as an Idaho native, I think it's so cool to see so many people. I mean, sometimes frustrating, but super cool to see that there's a reason why we love Boise so much, and to see how many people appreciate that as well. So, well, I appreciate you so much, Erin. Thank you so much for joining us and for all the work that you do for the chamber, but also for the community in general. Reminder to all of our listeners that Election Day is November 4th. So if you need any information before you hit the polls, or you need to know a little bit more about your ballot and your polling place, you can visit voteidaho.gov. You can also visit a bunch of news websites, KTVB, Idaho Ed News, Idaho Capital Sun, so many places that have voter guides ready for you to take a peek at. So, well, thanks again, Erin. Thanks so much to our media partners, Idaho Ed News, Idaho Capital Sun, and Idaho Press. And then thanks to our sponsor, Holly Troxel. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.